2 years ago, I received a breast cancer diagnosis, and in this video, I'm going to share with you what I did to heal myself naturally. Now, there's been a lot of things that I've learned, that I've done over these last couple of years. There's so much to cover, too much for just one video. So in this video, what I want to do is really just focus on the 5 main things, the 5 most important things that I did that I learned that I feel really moved the needle and brought not only emotional, mental, and spiritual results, but also, of course, real, tangible, physical results. If you'd like to know more about my story and things, I do have a video specifically for that, which I'll include in the description below. You can go ahead and check that out. And know that I will be making more videos to cover all the different things that I learned, that I tried, what did work, what didn't work in the near future. But like I said, I really want to focus today on the 5 main things that really made a difference for me. What may have helped a little bit for me could help you a lot, or vice versa, right? Because everyone's healing journey is different. So I will be covering more on that in upcoming videos. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet and you'd like to learn more about that, then please do and stay tuned. But today, yes, let's get to the 5 most important things. And I really believe that if you know and understand this and begin to practice these things and apply them in your life as well, that you will experience that it can really help you as well. All right, so let's get into it. This is not necessarily in order, but I am going to start with the thing that I believe had the biggest impact for me. It just changed everything. It changed the entire way that I viewed the world, basically, let alone health and my body, my biology, my psyche, my subconscious mind, and how that affects my body and how I react and interact with the world around me, and how that affects my body and my health and well-being and so many things. So that's where we're going to start here. So for me, this was number 1, and that is something called German New Medicine. It's referred to also as the New Medicine, or La Medicina Sagrada in Español, in Spanish, which means the sacred medicine. And when I first learned about German New Medicine, which I'll refer to as G&M moving forward, there was a part of me that instantly knew that there was something different about this. I instantly knew, I could feel it in my body, just this knowingness that this was it. This was different than everything else that I'd heard about, that I had tried, and it just really rung true. When you hear the truth, you know it's the truth. And that's kind of the experience I had when I first heard about it. I'm not going to get into all the details of what G&M is. So I have created another video that basically is an introduction to this. So I will link that in the description below in case you want to go and check that out and inform yourself, educate yourself a little bit more. And I will definitely be doing more videos getting into all of the details and practical uses of this new medicine, including more about my own experience. However, for now, I really just want to focus on the main things that I learned from it, the main takeaways, and how this really helped me. So German New Medicine, or G&M, is basically a map of understanding your biology. It explains how, according to how we react to our surroundings, to the different life events that we experience, in particular, those events that catch us off guard, that are unexpected, emotionally distressing, and isolating. Those traumatic events, but it's not always as they call it, the big T trauma that you would expect. It can be small T trauma. Basically just means things that, you might not think of it really as trauma, but it's something that's basically, that is affecting your psyche and how you view the world, and in a way that is basically throwing you off balance. Okay? It's emotionally distressing regardless of whether you would refer to it as traumatic or not. It's emotionally distressing and it caught you off guard. Our perception of these situations is determined basically by our upbringing, by our values and beliefs, our past experiences, our culture, social conditioning, our fears and insecurities. All of these things basically come together to create our psyche. and how the subconscious mind, how our psyche reacts to different situations in our life. So when you experience a situation, like I mentioned before, that's unexpected, that's emotionally distressing, according to how you see the world, you may perceive that situation in a certain way. Let me give you a quick example here. If we look at a divorce, for example, perhaps for one person, it may be the best thing, or they just don't really care, and so they don't really have any reaction. They don't have any, their psyche is not really affected either way. It's just, okay, this is just part of life, or it's just a thing that had to happen. There's no real imbalance or effects on your psyche, and therefore neither on your body. However, for somebody else, a divorce could be very conflicting and could really trigger some of those deep wounds that that person has developed from childhood or maybe even earlier on. And so it can cause or be a trigger that creates a conflict of, in GNM we have different terms for the different types of conflicts that we tend to experience. For example, a separation conflict, right? Maybe now I really miss that touch and the feeling of that person being near me, or even just physically touching me, like the intimacy and things like that, right? So I feel the separation, and that separation is distressing. And so if your conditioning and your just upbringing and all these things have contributed to you perceiving this event in this way, that you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't have this person anymore, I've lost them, this is, difficult, it's detrimental to me. Maybe it's even affecting like your own self-worth and what you believe about yourself. But usually this happens on a subconscious level. So that's the thing. We're not even really aware a lot of the time of how these things are truly affecting us, on a deep level. Sometimes we can even think, oh, consciously, like, yeah, it's okay, I don't need that person or whatever, and I'll just keep going. But subconsciously, we're actually really affected, on a deep level. And so a separation conflict, if that's kind of what comes out of this, that could manifest in different ways in the body. It could affect your skin because you don't have that touch, that physical touch anymore. It could even affect your hair growth. And it could definitely, if you're a woman, or especially, it can affect the breast ducts as well. And I won't get into the details of why now in this video, but I will in other videos. But if we continue with the same example, a divorce for somebody else may trigger may originate an anger conflict, or maybe even a starvation conflict, right? Maybe the person you were in a relationship with was the breadwinner, or whatever the situation was, being together kind of provided some sort of financial security. But now that the divorce has happened, there's been that separation, you could find yourself in a situation of like, oh my gosh, how do I pay for my bills now, right? Like, how do I feed my kids or myself? Like, you start to experience a real fear of things like starvation and just not being able to provide for yourself. And that's going to affect you on a different level. That's going to affect a different area of your body. With starvation conflicts, usually it's the liver that's affected, all right? So this is not a one size fits all. And that's one of the things I love about GNM, because it's real, it's authentic, right? Like, nothing is a one size fits all, because we are not all the same. We are all unique and have different past experiences. We have different conditioning. We have different fears and securities. So the combination of all of these is what makes up basically our response to these situations. It may or may not affect a certain person at all, or it may be like detrimental. It could be the end of the world in their eyes, right? And this is going to make a huge difference on how this event then affects you, but not only, your mental health and your emotional health, but also your physical health. Because if you're not careful and you don't regulate those emotions, express them and release them, if you don't find a resolution to that conflict and kind of bring your nervous system back into balance and find peace, basically, then at some point, if enough time passes, and sometimes we don't need a lot of time for this, sometimes it can take a bit longer, but if enough time passes like that, it will spill over, so to speak, or it will begin to affect the physical body. So just having the understanding of this was very empowering and eye-opening. On the one hand, it allowed me to begin to understand myself more and how I've reacted to certain situations. And it also taught me to like the importance of recognizing these things and becoming aware of and acknowledging these fears or emotions and things that are deep within me, basically like my deepest, darkest secrets, right? Instead of just ignoring them, pretending they're not there, suppressing them, trying to run away from them my entire life, keeping them in the dark, right? All these things don't help. It just gets stuck there, it builds up, and the energy cannot move through, and that's when it does manifest in the body. So one thing I've learned is to understand my own psyche, my own subconscious mind, my own conditioning, my own thought patterns, my own behavioral patterns, my triggers, all of these things, and to be able to see oftentimes or in real life circumstances how this then affects my reality. In many cases, my body, but I've also been able to notice it in different areas of my life. So this is what GNM really helps you to do. It maps out the type of conflicts that we typically experience in life, how they affect your brain and the corresponding area or organ of your body. So this helps you understand what is the root cause, right? If you go back through your timeline and figure out, okay, when did these symptoms first appear and things like that, you can determine where you were at that point in your life, what was going on, and begin to pinpoint, okay, what was it? What was the trigger that caused my body to respond in this way? And once you know the root cause, then and only then can you actually really begin to heal, deep, lasting healing. If there is a flood in the basement in your house, for example, just bucketing out the water isn't going to do anything if the leak is coming from above, if it's coming from the first floor, right? It might look temporarily like it's helping, if maybe the water level goes down a little bit as you're working up a sweat, bucketing out the water, but the water's going to continue to pour into the basement, no matter how quickly or how many people you have helping you bucket out the water. The water continues to flood in because you're not addressing the root cause, right? So this is what we're talking about here. We must address the root cause. We must understand, and cut these things at the root, rip them out from the root if we really want long-lasting results. And that's what GNM helps you to do, first and foremost. Second of all, it helps you understand the mind-body connection, as I was explaining. The other thing, possibly the most important and impactful for me, was that it just takes away the fear, because you realize that this is your body just adapting to that unexpected, emotionally distressing situation in your life. For example, in my case, it was the breast ducts, basically the milk ducts that carry the milk in the breast, down the ducts down to the nipple and out to, nurse a baby. So when you experience a separation conflict like I did, which could be either a perceived separation, just feelings of being separated from someone, or a fear of separation, or even a desire of separating from someone and not being able to for whatever reason, the breast ducts actually widen and we experience cell loss. This is so that the milk that was in the breast is no longer needed. Because if you think about this, in the wild, let's say with a mama bear cub or something, she loses her cub or something happens to it, but she has all this milk in her breast, right? Because she was breastfeeding. And now there's no baby there to drink that milk, right? And so the body needs to adapt and find a way to release it, to evacuate that milk that is no longer needed because of the separation. It's no longer needed now. The cub is no longer there to do that, right? And so to avoid a buildup that could cause problems within the breast ducts if the milk isn't evacuated, the body adapts. The breast tissue adapts in a way that the ducts widen so that the breast can now safely be evacuated. So that's all that's happening. There's nothing to be afraid of, right? That just changed everything for me. So That's actually what happens though in what we call the conflict active phase for this particular biological response. Then once you get into the healing and repair phase, because you've come to terms with what happened or there's been some kind of resolution to the conflict, now the milk ducts need to go back to normal. They can't stay very wide like that forever. They're not meant to stay that way for a long time, right? So now that there's been a resolution, they can go back to normal. And for this to happen, there needs, as there was cell loss before, there is now cell proliferation, right? More cells are being produced to replenish the cells that were lost. So when this happens, when the reconstruction, the repair phase is in progress in this particular biological response, that can appear as, or that is what conventional medicine often labels as a cyst or a tumor. It's really, that's all that's happening. It's just your body responding to that event in a way that was to help you get through it in that moment. But the thing is, we need to find a resolution to that, right? We need to resolve the conflict, number one. And a lot of the time, we do resolve it without even knowing it. And this explains spontaneous remissions. This explains why sometimes surgeries and other things do work, because other things are going on a subconscious level that we're not aware of, and things may just happen to line up at that same time and resolve the conflict, which is great. And maybe even it's just you deciding to take the time out of your busy schedule for you to go get the treatment. Maybe that's your own act of self-love. For me, that didn't feel like self-love because of probably my preconceived notions of, these treatments and what they involve and things like that. But for some people, that could be an act of self-love. And if that were an act of self-love for you, maybe that's exactly what you needed, right? Maybe you just needed to take that time for you to give yourself that love, and that was the resolution to your conflict. It's definitely not always that straightforward and simple, but a lot of times it is. And in the end, I think it all comes down to love, really, in the end, to self-love. But we'll save that for another video. So the point of this, though, in the stories that I've just shared with you, it just took away the fear, and I just realized that this is what my body's doing. It's just adapted in order to help me. It's already in the healing process, and all I need to do is not interfere. I need to get out of my head, out of these negative thought patterns. I need to become aware of what the triggers are, realize why I'm getting triggered, and work through that, and not just suppress it or ignore it, and not just let it kind of overtake me and my life, right? I need to find a resolution. I need to find the peace. But I know that there is freedom from fear. There's nothing to fear. And even the health industry and things often, they instill a lot of fear into people. And there's really no reason for that. And I do understand, and I'm not dismissing anyone else's experience. Every situation is different. And when it affects the breast, this is not a part of the body that's essential for your survival, right? So it is a little bit different than if you were to have some sort of blockage in the airway or your digestive system or something like that. You need to act more quickly with that, right? But you can still apply this and make sure that you are getting to the root cause so that you don't have reoccurrence, and so that the healing process goes more smoothly, is quicker, and you have that support, right? But I do want to acknowledge that sometimes I do get how there could be fear in certain situations like that, even regardless of knowing this information. However, that's why I do recommend still seeing a doctor and things like that. It's important to know what is the exact situation for me, and how necessary is it for me to seek treatment right away? Because sometimes it really is. It can be an essential supportive part of your healing process. But in many cases, it's not necessary at all, or you may just have a lot more time than you're led to believe. And I think it's really important to not make decisions based on fear. And so just having this knowledge that GNM provides, it just changes everything. So please go check out that video in my description that gets a little bit more into detail about this, and stay tuned for more information about this if this sounds like something that's resonating, because that's all I'm going to share about it in this video. I want to get to the other important things. So the second thing, or another thing that was very impactful and helpful for me, was self-discovery, basically getting to know myself truly, on a deep level, my authentic, true self, why I'm here, what my mission is in life. But more than that, what are these deep-rooted subconscious beliefs that I have, right? What do I really believe about myself? And how much of that is true? And how much of that is really just a story that I've been telling myself, or that somebody told me at some point and I just accepted as the reality, when it's really not true at all, and it's not benefiting me either. Also, how much of that isn't even mine? I really realized along this journey as well that I've been carrying around so much conditioning and fears and things like that is not even mine, right? That I saw or heard from someone and just believed it to be true. And unconsciously, as a young child, mostly adopted that as my own, as just the reality, when that's not the case at all. Yet, because I believed it, it began to shape my reality, to shape how I see things and affect how I react to these different situations in my life. Really going within and asking yourself, questions, and just listening to the answer. And, how that works may look different for all of us. Sometimes it's just a feeling, and not like a real answer, like in words that we get. But sometimes we do actually hear a response, and it might just sound like your own voice. But, to trust that and to just understand like how you perceive things, how you interact with the world. What are your wounds? What are like your weak spots? What are your triggers? What are the things that trigger you? So really peeling back those layers of just lies and stories that we've been told or that we believed about ourselves that aren't serving us and aren't even true, becoming conscious of them. And then sometimes that's enough in and of itself to just let go and just, erase that from our belief system. But sometimes, it requires more work than that, and it requires a daily practice of being conscious of your thoughts, being conscious of your actions as well, and your responses to these triggers. Another part of this, though, is like your ability to make decisions, and just to know that in the end, it's your body, it's your life. You're the only one who really knows what you need, who knows what's best for you. And you might not know this on a conscious level, and that's okay. But deep down, subconsciously, your higher self or your subconscious, your God, right? You are a part of God. God is within you, and God knows. Your higher self knows. You know on a deep subconscious level what is right for you and what is your ticket to healing, basically. What is your path to healing? Nobody else in this entire world, I don't care if it's your mom, your kid, your spouse, nobody else can tell you this. No doctor can tell you this. No one can tell you this, right? Nobody knows this better than you. But what happens is often we're clouded by all these other beliefs and conditioning and just all the distractions that we have in our daily lives. So again, it's practicing this, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through, there's so many different things, which I'll get into in other videos about how you can do this. But this was very pivotal. This was crucial for me and my healing process. And this kind of leads me to my next point, which is just practicing mindfulness and awareness, right? And really becoming mindful and becoming conscious of these different layers of yourself, right? Of what's going on in the subconscious, in the background of your mind, basically 24/7, basically running the show, but you're not conscious of, right? We need to get conscious of these things. Part of that is learning to just observe your thoughts, learning that you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, you just have thoughts and you have emotions, but you are what perceives them. You are the awareness of these thoughts and emotions. So you are not them. You are not these things. Creating a degree of separation between yourself and your thoughts and your emotions and just the different events in your life, they don't define you. They don't determine who you are or anything. They don't determine your future, right? It's just something that you're experiencing, probably for a reason, probably to learn something from. So viewing it in that way, and it really just takes a lot of the heaviness away from it, a lot of the fear away from it. And a lot of that for me has involved the process of, emptying my mind and really just practicing being present, being in the present moment, and not having these programs that are running in the background, all these thought patterns that are running in the background, going on 24/7, clouding my judgment, distracting me from my real self or my real feelings or what's really going on around me and all the beauty and just the magic of being here and existing in this body, in this earth right now here with you. Okay, so number 4 is the mirror effect, which we'll call it for now. But basically, it's just to summarize it, the way I see it, it's like it all starts from within, right? We are the creators of our own world, of our own reality. I didn't intentionally, consciously sign up for this, right? And we can't control every little, event, of course, that happens in our lives, but we can control how we perceive it. And therefore, we have a big impact on how it affects us. We bring into our reality whatever is in alignment with us, with our frequency, with our emotions, with how we feel, with how we view the world. And so, but it all starts within, right? Within your mind, within your heart, within your body, and then it's produced without. And so how we view our relationships with other people, how we view our own self-worth and what we have to contribute to the world, all these different things is going to determine the experiences that come into our lives. As long as you focus on maintaining a high frequency, keeping your nervous system in balance, right? Allowing the emotions and thoughts that come to you to pass through you and not get stuck. All of these things, as long as we are in alignment and doing what we feel we should be doing, what we feel called to do, what makes us happy, what lights us up. This is basically going to create the frequency surrounding us and is then going to attract different events into our lives, okay? But this is very empowering. So now you can make different decisions. Now you can make more empowering decisions and really become the captain of your own ship, of your own life. Now, number 5 is actually plant medicine, specifically ayahuasca. Maybe it wasn't, necessary for everything to happen for me to get to this point, but I really believe that it accelerated things. It really brought a lot of clarity and that feeling of being held, of being supported, and of being guided by something bigger than you. I was just way more connected with Mother Earth and with the Earth's consciousness, and this just gave me a whole new level, like a whole new feeling of support and unconditional love and guidance that honestly I had never felt before in my life. In the end, it all comes down to one thing, and that is love. That is self-love. And I believe that all these different conflicts that we can experience in life, all these sort of traumatic, unexpected, emotionally distressing events, if we really have a solid foundation within ourselves of love, of radical self-acceptance, then these things aren't going to affect us in the same way, right? We're not going to be thrown out of balance so easily, maybe not at all. And if we are, we can recover much more quickly. That's really kind of what ayahuasca was, is it just showed me how to love myself, kind of maybe by acting as within my brain in the way I was able to interpret it or perceive it as, this plant spirit that was being there for me and showing me how to love myself. But really it was just me showing me how to love myself, reminding myself how to be there for myself and support myself and show up for myself. And of course, as I began to do that, I was also able to show up so much more fully and with love for the people and the things in my life. So yeah, it's been an amazing, transformative experience. I know there's a lot more to come. I don't have all of the answers, but I feel very grateful for being where I am. I hope that, sharing this with you can help you or somebody you know. So if you'd like to continue on this journey with me and learn more about everything I've learned so far and what's helped me so far, but also as I continue on this process, I'm going to be sharing them here. So if you'd like to come along this journey with me, then please do subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned for the videos coming soon. And just remember, a beautiful dear friend of mine who listening to me, you are the medicine.